Hi and welcome or welcome back. Today I want to talk about primary color sets and why they're good, and I'm gonna give a couple of tricks to how to use them. And first, before we start, thank you everybody who's watching my channel and who's subscribing. It's been quite overwhelming this past week. Um, it's like been fantastic. It's So thank you, thank you, thank you. You have no idea how appreciative I am. If you watch experienced painters talk about what to do to get started without buying 1,000 colors, they will often go, "Oh, go get a primary set." And some beginners do, and they go, "So now what?" I got between 3 and 6 colors. 5 is quite common. And what to do with it, they try, and everybody says, oh, you can mix pretty much nearly every color you want. And yeah, sometimes that doesn't quite go that way. I picked the Holbein's wash primary set. It's a nice primary set, and it's affordable, and it is actually one of the quite good ones. So I bought mine off Jackson's, and you'll find an affiliate link in the description for this. And here I have some of this on it, and you can see I've already mixed some colors because I have actually used it. I was just thinking that I was gonna give you guys a tip or two. So that set is what is called a CMY primary set. Cyan, magenta, and yellow, plus black and white. We're not going to use black and white today, but yeah. You can also get a color wheel. I bought this off Jackson, but it's been several years. I'll see if I can find a link for it. But this is kind of the revised color wheel. We used to use a blue, red, yellow color wheel, but it was then scientists later found out that the red was not the primary red, it was actually magenta that is the primary red. If you're totally new to color mixing and color theory and stuff, I can recommend getting a color wheel. But also, I'll add a warning. This is not the entire truth, because this is a theory. This is color theory. And color theory does work, but the pigments is kind of reality, and they are just a little bit different than the stuff you see on the color wheel. Like the mixing ratios here. Here it's on red, and it's called the key color, and here I should probably hold it up closer to the camera. Here is the key color 90, 60, 70, 60%, 80, 90, 80, 70, 60, and then complement color. And the complement color is always the one that is exactly opposite on the color wheel. See down there, it's the complement color. So that if you mix this one into that one in set ratios, you should get those colors. It's just not how quite it works, because typically the color that is given for cyan has the pigment just has more power in a mix than the red you will typically get. So forget about the percentages. It's more getting an idea if you think about it more in terms of if I add a little bit of the blue or a lot of the blue, because it continues down here. We can turn the key color over to that. then now it's reversed, but it's still the same two colors that is mixed together to give all of these on the inside. So it's an okay way to get a general idea, but you don't get around practicing mixing your own paints. And every time you change paints, you need to check out exactly how they mix. You will get the general idea at some point and get better at it. Here on the edge is kind of the idea of how these colors are mixed, because there's the primary colors, magenta, yellow, and cyan. That's the colors you can't mix. That's why they're called primaries. And then here you can see, this is actually a good representation, because here you get less and less of the cyan and more of the magenta for the colors here. If you mix cyan and magenta, you get kind of a violet. I don't know why they call that blue and that violet, because that's a red violet and that is a violet and that is a blue. I can get along with calling that blue cyan, but I don't know why they had to reinvent the color names for this color wheel. But you get the idea. If you put a little bit of magenta into the cyan, you get more of a sky blue color. And if you add even more, you get a violet. And if you add more magenta than cyan, you get a reddish violet. Here it is cyan and yellow. It gives a range of greens, bluish greens, yellowish greens, and like a mid green. And over here is reds and oranges. If you have a red, blue, yellow color wheel, I do have one. I just don't know where I put it now. It also kind of works. It fell on the floor. It's from before we found out about magenta, and it's the same principle. But it's just not as accurate. I think the colors that is the mixed colors on this one is actually more accurate than this. There are some principal things explained on most color wheels. Here's the explanation of tint, tone, and shade, and here's some mixes. It depends. Tint is when you mix in white, tone is when you mix in gray, and shade is when you mix in black. So, yeah, color wheels are good to play around with and get some general ideas, but they're not the entire truth. Now, if you mix two primaries, you get a secondary, and in theory it's half and half. In practice it's not. Good. So cyan and yellow gives a green. If you take the green and add 50% of that mixture, more cyan into it, you get a tertiary color. And the same on the other side, for instance, a yellow-green. Tertiary color is something I hear being used wrongly a lot of the time. Lots of people think it's the colors on the inside here of the color wheel, where you mix in the complementary colors, but that's not true. It is these colors here with 50% extra of one parent color. Tertiary is used wrong or not at all. I usually don't. If it's a green, I call this a secondary. Same with violets and pinks and those types, or reds and oranges. The colors on the inside are called neutrals, and like the ultimate neutral is black. In theory, if you mix all three primaries, you should get a black. It can be a little tricky depending on the pigments you get, and that's why sometimes they give you a black pigment in the set. white is to make the tints. So here's the color wheel, and that was the quick explanation, and or not so quick because I am long-winded. I'm sorry. So here on my palette I put my primaries, magenta, cyan, and yellow, and but I also got 3 others over here. Here's a violet that I mixed of the 2 already. I used a palette knife. I put 2 clumps out. There's an extra cyan here because I remembered I should probably not do it 50-50, so I just took the magenta and then I scooped just a bit of the cyan into this. Here over here we have an orange, and I remembered the same thing, so I have extra magenta there. And over here is a green where I did it kind of right. And that actually makes my life a little easier. So, and I explain you why. And here's one thing I know lots of new painters struggle with. Well, I'm gonna mix colors directly on my paper here for you. So here we have the cyan or the blue, whatever you will call it. So blue and yellow gives a green, and that's kind of that kind of green over there. If you add more yellow, you get that greenish yellow. If you add more of the blue, you get more of a bluish green. The greens you can get from this is quite bright. It might not come across very well on camera, but they are. They doesn't seem really all that natural. So if you're kind of doing a landscape and it's just this is nearly lime green, and this is almost turquoise. It's just a bit too much. I'll grab the green already mixed over here for you, because that ended up as being kind of a middle green. Now, if I want to have it more dampen it just a little bit, bring it a little bit in from the edge here. I want maybe a little bit more of a grayish type of green. The theory is you take the 3rd color on the color wheel, the one that is not in this mix, and you add that. So let's take some magenta. And boom, that was not what I aimed for. I just wanted maybe an olive green or something of that sort. What did I get instead? I got a near black, violet, gray here, because that magenta is just has so much of a punch, and I think that this is what happens probably to many who's not quite used to mixing paint. If this has happened to you, you didn't do anything wrong. It was just that magenta was hard to control. So let's try this again, but let's do something different. So how do we introduce this red without it going directly to black? Well, we got one of the components of green mixed with that red. And I told you I mixed in a lot of yellow with just a little bit of the magenta. So we have already kind of thinned the magenta, so quote unquote. So let's try and grab some of that. Not too much, but some. And that went a lot smoother. See, that's a whole different story. It's not as bright as that, but it's still recognizable as a green, like that went entirely purple. So if you pre-mix some secondaries for your own use, that can help you adjust your colors to And it's also easier to mix like greens and grays and stuff if you got the secondaries on your palette already. Now this doesn't have to be gouache. It could be watercolor, it could be acrylic or oils. It all works the same way. Um, I'd say if you buy a primary set of acrylics, for instance, go and buy some empty containers for your secondaries. Then you can pre-mix it in the containers and put the lid on and not waste too much paint, because also that's a new beginner thing, is to estimate how much paint you actually need. And if you have to adjust a lot forth and back, you end up with a ton of paint. So but if you got some secondaries in some separate containers, you can reuse it and have that as, then you got 6 colors to work with instead of just 3. You can even buy as many containers, and then you can make maybe a yellowish green, a mid green, a blue green, and so forth. So you have different versions of your secondaries, and that will definitely help you. You can mix more. You can mix all you want, pre-mixes. So that's a trick I wanted to share with you. Mix secondaries and use them in your color mixes. You can also, if we take this mid green, if you want to make like a dark green, because that's about as dark as you can get it just with the cyan on its own. Grab a little bit of the blue violet. You might even want to add a little extra blue. Don't want it to be too red. And you can mix that in, and you get a dark grayish green, and that's perfect for shades of trees and bushes and green water and what else you got. I have just used this with greens, because if I have to do it with all the colors, then this video will be really long, and I don't want to do that. I want to show you how to, for instance, mix a brown, because that is browns and grays contain all the primaries. I like to start with a violet and then add some orange. Again, because the orange contains already the red, and then a little bit of the yellow. So we mix this in, and that gives some browns that is still a bit on the red side. So you can actually adjust it with a little bit of green if you wanted more of a gray brown. I got some white here because you can also mix that in. It will sometimes make it more clear what you got. That was actually very gray, that one. Browns and grays can be a little bit on the funny side to mix with primary sets. I'm not saying it's super hard, but it can be a little tricky to get the exact shade you want. So I'd say then your next color, if you do animals, or add more orange to it. See, now it's more golden brown. I can't tell you what brown to get. It depends on your taste and stuff. I like a raw umber, a very, in itself, not very attractive color. It's poo brown, to be honest, but it's a splendid mixing color, because it's really a good base brown that you can adjust with the other primary colors. You can just add some more yellow if you wanted to go that way, or some more red, then you get some reddish browns and stuff. So that was a couple of tricks for a primary set, and I think I'm with all the other painters who say get a primary set, but I think it needs to come with some tips. Thank you for watching. Come back. I need to do a painting next, I guess. Take care.